Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're so excited to have our favorite Hallie Crawford here with us today. I'm excited for you all to be with us this afternoon. We're just going to wait a few seconds here and make sure we've got all of our attendees with us. And we'll get started shortly.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like there, Sarah Whitney, but it got cold here overnight, like 42. So we have our last blast of winter before spring.
Yes, same. Literally had to go pull out a vest because I just could not get warm today.
Yeah. And it's like I had already started to kind of shift everything over. And then it was like, nope, just kidding.
Just kidding. We will continue. All right, I say we just go ahead and get rolling so that everyone can have their lunch together.
Perfect.
Okay, so welcome to today, how new managers can make their mark during COVID. Brought to you by your Vanderbilt Alumni Association. I'm Sarah Whitney Anderson, Assistant Director of Alumni and Student Engagement, and I'm so glad you could be with us from wherever you are today. Today's webinar will last around 45 minutes with time at the end for questions. So please feel free to type those questions either in the Q&A box down below or in the chat. I'll be sure to monitor them both. Feel free to use this as I forgot the worksheet today. But we will record today's webinar and post on the webinar page on VU Connect, and we will share this recording with you via email later this week. Many of you know our presenter today from previous alumni career offerings here at Vanderbilt, and I'm always excited to bring her back. Hallie Crawford, an alumna of Vanderbilt, is a certified career coach based in Atlanta, Georgia. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and team of coaches have helped thousands of people nationwide uncover their dream career and make it a reality. Hallie is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including Forbes.com, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, AJC, and Fox Business News. Over to you, Hallie.
Thanks, Sarah Whitney. And thank you everyone for being here today on I know a lot of us is like spring break and we're all kind of going crazy, just, being vaccinated and wanting to travel and that kind of thing. I'm actually traveling this weekend and next week I got my first vaccine shot about a couple of weeks ago. So we appreciate your time live here today, as well as those people that will be listening in later. So we are going to talk today about how new managers can make their mark more effectively, especially during COVID, because COVID obviously has changed so much. And now a lot of people, if they're starting a new job or if you've gotten promoted and are a newer manager during this time, it's kind of like, how do I know what to do? I mean, everything's so different now that we're not in the office. So we want to we'll give you general advice about how to make your mark as a new manager in general, but each of our kind of tidbits and tips here, we'll also tailor those to what are some added or extra things that you need to be doing during COVID when you don't have all of that context that you would have had before. So we want you to know kind of first here, and then I'll show you our agenda in just a moment. We want you to know that this idea or concept of the imposter syndrome is something that is actually a very real phenomenon. And we're finding that more of our clients who are becoming new managers, who are getting promoted or even starting a new job during COVID, are experiencing this more than ever because we don't know how to operate as effectively in some ways without that office environment. There's no or less of a maybe formal training program, because the training program may have been something in person where you shadow people at the office. So please know that you're not alone and that many new managers can feel this sense of imposter syndrome, which is where you feel a little bit over your head. You might be in over your head. You're not sure exactly what you're doing. Even when you're excited about becoming a new manager, you can have some of these concerns and hesitations as well. Some new managers feel like, gosh, I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. I know they gave me this promotion, for example, so they feel I know what I'm doing, but I don't always feel like I'm totally qualified for this yet. Some people can feel that way. Some people can feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing to a certain extent, but I don't know how to sustain my success in the long run as a new manager. I might have kind of tips and tricks for the beginning, but I really need to know how to be effective for the long term. And some people might feel as a new manager that they're just totally overwhelmed with all of these, not just their new responsibilities they have, but how do I manage people virtually? This is a whole new can of worms, so to speak, or ball of wax. So working remotely can add to this sense of imposter syndrome and add some extra challenges. Obviously, we're thrown into this virtual environment, and it's hard to know how to create new processes, not just for ourselves, but as a new manager for our team. It's very easy for us to overwork and get burned out really quickly. And when we're trying to manage other people and getting interrupted by kids, pets, et cetera, which by the way, I have my dog here at my home office today. And if he barks at any time, I'll just kind of manage that as we go. But just know that you're not alone. This is something that any new manager would feel kind of regardless. And then when you add COVID to it, it can be that much tougher. Even before COVID, so many people felt like being a new manager can be as stressful as, or, second in line in terms of stress to a divorce. And so for some people, it can feel incredibly stressful to become a new manager. One of the things you want to keep in mind here as we start to talk about our tools and tips is you want to start to kind of evaluate where your strengths are or might be as a new manager because of certain things that you do really well. Maybe you're more of a people person, or maybe you're more of an operations or process person. So think about those things that you would do really well, just kind of naturally based on your strengths and personality, but also those areas where you may need a little bit of help because those are the things that we'll be talking about today. So those are the that's the bad news. The good news is that you can take control of your situation. There are lots of different things that you can do to create a plan over, Q2 and Q3 to really be successful and kind of hit the ground running as much as possible as a new manager. We have been coaching and training for over 21 years now. So these are tips that we provide to all of our clients and have done so for a really long time to help you with this new role that you have. So first of all, basic quick agenda, we're going to talk about the most common obstacles that we find with our clients who are becoming new managers. We will give you 10 quick tips to get ahead to help you feel more comfortable in your new role, but also things that you can and we would recommend you incorporate into your long-term strategic career plan. And then we want you to walk away today with very tangible, specific action steps so that you've got one or two things that you will do in the next couple of weeks to get this ball rolling with feeling more comfortable. By the way, if anyone would like a copy of our PowerPoint presentation, in addition to the recording that you will receive automatically, please feel free to email us. You would just shoot us an email at admin@halliecrawford.com, and we would be happy to go ahead and share that with you. So Sarah Whitney, it'd be great if we could actually launch into our first poll here right now, or, in the next second here when you're ready. But the most common obstacles that we see with our clients, and we wanted to share these with you all because it's important to understand what the common obstacles are so that you can figure out kind of where you might be falling short. So some of us may mistake or assume or think, oh, I have instant authority. And that's not always the case because we still have to earn trust with our team and employees. And they may kind of defy that authority a little bit or question it. Some of us may try to maintain the same relationships that we had before with any of our previous or former coworkers that now we are managing, etc. So it could be that we're trying too hard to be liked. It could be that we're assuming your way is the only right way to do things, or not knowing how much work it goes into being a new manager. So we want you to think first, everybody, about which obstacle most applies to you. And if you all would like to, who are participating live today, feel free to put this into the chat box if you'd like to share with us whatever your obstacle is. That's just an easier way to do our polls today. Feel free to share that with us. Because we want you guys to know that, number one, not just that you're not alone, but if you write down and understand what these common obstacles are, it's going to really help you understand, okay, where you might be getting in your own way. All right. So first, tip number one, which relates to that, is we want you to identify your top two obstacles. Where do you think you're either falling short kind of externally, if you will, in terms of strengths or lack of experience externally, those obstacles where you might be falling short, but also internally where you might be getting in your own way. So do you have a lot of fear or anxiety about being a new manager? Are you concerned about, I'm not doing a good job with managing how my relationships with other people have changed? Maybe it's that I'm not doing a great job communicating enough and providing context to my new team about what they need to be doing and why we're working on specific projects. In some cases, understandably, new managers can have this fear of delegating and trying to do things all by themselves. And what we want you to do first is kind of do a quick review and assessment of what your top two obstacles might be. What is getting in your way externally, but also internally? What other, fears or concerns that you have? Are you not being confident enough and you need to kind of just fake it till you make it a little bit? Identify your top two obstacles and write those down first, because we want you to leverage the rest of the tips that we're discussing today to tailor those tips and advice based on what your main kind of weak spots are or your main obstacles. Tip number two, as a new manager, and this goes honestly for any manager, but especially for new managers, one of the things that you want to do right away, kind of out of the box, is you need to really be conscious of and mindful of earning their respect and their trust. We want you to spend a lot of time at the very beginning listening to your teammates, your team members, and your employees. Instead of just diving in those first, few meetings with each person, group-wise and otherwise, instead of just diving in, we really want you to take some time to ask them a lot of really good questions to pull information out of them. How are they feeling during this time of COVID? What are they doing well, but also what are they struggling with? What do they need from you? Ask them that question directly so that then you can empower them to understand their own perspective and be more self-aware, but then you can also have greater empathy for what's going on with them and you know how to lead them more effectively. So it's a really good idea, especially as a new manager, for a while to ask questions first, then be authoritative after that. Be sure that you schedule time every month to get to know your new employees. You want to understand what their strengths are, what they do well, what their weaknesses might be too, but also take time to understand their personality type. Just how do they behave? Not just in the office, but online virtually. How do their emails come across? What's their communication style? What's their kind of tone? What seems to be most important to them based on what their values might be? Okay, so it's really important to take time to get to know everyone, not just on a professional level, but a little bit or enough on a personal level to then understand what their strengths, personality type, and their values are. What motivates them to do the work that they do, and what gets them excited about their projects. And then finally, as part of this, if you're one of those people that needs to accept a little bit more and understand and kind of adjust to how your work relationships have changed with former coworkers, one of the things you could do with them is have a quick conversation with them about how can we work together differently now? How are you feeling about this change in our relationship? And what do you think we need to do differently as a result? Try to have an open conversation with them about it. And then as part of tip number two, earning their respect and trust, one of the things that you can do is have a little bit of fun to get to know your new employees in this virtual world, though. And there's different ways that we can do this. We've had clients tell us that they'll have a scavenger hunt for their team. For the first 5 minutes of a meeting, everyone go around and grab something from their home, like write down 5 things they can go find. Some people will have like themed meetings and wear something fun or different, like Hawaiian Day or whatever it is. Some people will have employees send in a recent photo of their kids, their pet, a local adventure, and you can create a quick collage to kind of get to know each other a little bit. So it's really important also in terms of team building, because we don't have that office environment anymore, to take and make time during your professional meetings to allow people to kind of establish that camaraderie with each other, but also with you as their new manager. Tip number 3 is to find a mentor. And we'd love to hear from you all today if you currently have a mentor or not. Feel free to put that in the chat box if you'd like to. But one of the things that can really help, especially a new manager, is to identify a mentor. It can be someone within or outside your organization. It can be someone that you've worked with in the past. We actually like people to have 2 mentors. If there's someone within their organization, that's great, because they can give them, that inside perspective. But also someone outside of your organization, like a former boss or a family friend or former coworker or teammate, they can give you like a more objective perspective. So regardless, try to identify and find and kind of set up, even in an informal relationship, and regular meetings with a mentor that can help kind of you bounce ideas off of them. Ideally, the person would be a manager in their own right and have several years of experience under their belt, because they can give you advice and feedback along the way. And then do consider too, just in case, if your company doesn't have their own mentoring program, because sometimes they do, and you may want to ask them just to be safe in case they do and you just don't know about it. But you want to make sure too, if they don't have a mentoring program, try to find out if they have any kind of new manager training programs or kind of job shadowing, even virtually, that you could do with someone else. So kind of be creative about where and how you can get some advice from someone who has been there, done that before. Obviously, we as career coaches act as mentors for our clients as part of the deal. We bring a different perspective. We wouldn't have the inside knowledge, obviously, about your organization. We would be kind of that outside perspective, if you will. Tip number 4 is to be really, really committed, especially as a new manager, to continuously enhancing your skill set. And what we want you to think about the most, because what we see our clients kind of struggle with the most, is HR issues, people's feelings, their frustrations, conflict within the workplace, etc. Those are normally the things that our clients will tell us are the hardest things for them to take on and deal with as a new manager. So we would actually narrow this enhancing your skill set idea down to really focusing on managing kind of people issues and HR training courses that you could take, books you can read, and we'll give you some advice about those as we go here. So including coursework in your annual plan to enhance your qualifications can be a really important piece to this. You could ask your boss or HR department for ideas, but look for like certifications or internet courses. LinkedIn Learning is a great place to find just very quick and free or low cost classes. You could also check out the LinkedIn profiles of other new managers within your organization or other more senior managers. Have they taken any management classes? And as part of this, to kind of figure out the skills and strengths that you feel you need to enhance your skill set, conduct some informational interviews with people who have been managers for a little while at your organization to find out what they think are the most important strengths and skills for leaders within your organization specifically. Tip number 5 is to be really committed to taking initiative in several different ways as a new manager. So we talked about taking initiative already with getting to know people on a little bit of a deeper level and building that camaraderie and that sense of team with scavenger hunts, those kinds of fun things. But some of the other things that we want you to take initiative with is to be very committed, number 1, to over communicating with your team. Because we are not in an office environment. We don't have the natural water cooler talk. Someone can't just stop by Joe's office next door to ask him a quick question. So you as a new leader need to over communicate and provide more context for why you're working on a certain project, how it ties to the bottom line and the vision of the organization, and what kind of extra instructions for how they need to do something. Don't just assume that everything everyone understands how to do something effectively, because now that we're thrown into this virtual environment, it's harder for some of our employees to create new processes and systems than it is for others. So the more context and kind of background information and instruction you can provide, the better. A second thing we want you to do in terms of taking initiative is participate in other meetings that are led by more senior level managers, people above you. And not just paying attention to the content, but observe and start to emulate what are their strengths, what are they doing on their meetings, and what are their soft skills that they seem to have that you need to work on and possibly adopt. And then one of the third things that we would highly recommend you do as a new manager for the long run of your career is to start to work on building your brand on social media, and LinkedIn is specifically where we mean. Start to make a commitment to network with people a little bit more on LinkedIn once a week or every other week. Build networking and posting articles or sharing articles or inspirational quotes on LinkedIn on a more regular basis, because managers, you want to be building your brand overall. And as a new manager, this is the time to start doing that in a more proactive way. So get a little bit more active on LinkedIn so that you're not just building out your network, but you're building your brand as well and demonstrating what some of your ideas and thoughts are as a new manager. Tip number 6, and this goes back to some of the obstacles that we were talking about earlier, that if any of you feel like confidence is one of your biggest obstacles or issues, we totally understand this. It's completely normal. And there are ways to work around this. So we'll give you some ideas on this slide, and I have a couple more that I'll share with you as well. So first of all, your sense of confidence and your attitude, it's critical to your success. We all know this. Your attitude, it affects your actions, which in turn affects your outcome. So even the perspective that you have, or that sense or feeling of excitement or enthusiasm you either have or don't on your next team meeting, is going to impact your performance and impact how your team feels. By the way, 85% of our clients will tell us that they are their biggest obstacle to their career goals and being effective as a manager. So please know, if you feel like you're getting in your own way, again, you're not alone. So a couple of things that we wanted to share here too is to think about, number one, identify those areas and situations where you tend to feel less confident, okay, in your new role. Is it when you're presenting to a client? Is it when you're speaking to your whole team? Or is it when maybe you're presenting a certain piece of information or leading a certain type of meeting? The more you can identify kind of those themes between when you feel less confident, that's where you can spend the majority of your energy focusing on fixing it and overcoming that obstacle. So identify those areas where you tend to feel less confident more than others and focus on those. The second thing that you can do is to start to develop affirmations for those areas. What are you actually good at when you host those types of meetings? Or it could be, I am a great new manager because of XYZ, and focusing on your strengths. You can post something on your bathroom mirror or your fridge. Another thing that we would suggest is to watch your body language and pay attention to your nonverbals when you're on meetings. So before you hop on a certain meeting, for example, that tends to make you feel a little bit intimidated, do listen to some music, like a pump you up playlist in advance to get you in the right mental state and feeling good. When you sit down at your computer to get everything started, make sure you give yourself some extra time so you've got everything in place. But sit up straight, have everything ready to go at your desk. And when you're talking, talk deliberately and slowly, because that will help you come across as more confident, even if you're feeling a little bit less so. So I definitely assert with body language and with other things as well, that there is a little bit here, and that's okay, of the fake it till you make it. Just kind of pump yourself up to be in that more confident place. And as things progress and you're performing these new tasks, your confidence will get boosted and increase over time. And then finally, part of that concept or idea, to kind of piggyback on it, is if you make a commitment to taking small risks every day as a new manager, trying something new, This will increase your confidence as well. Because confidence, everyone, it's basically like a muscle that needs to be developed and kind of worked out on a regular basis. And if you're not working out like your confidence muscle, if you're not challenging yourself regularly, if you're not trying something new and different and taking small risks every day, that's when your confidence muscle can kind of atrophy a little bit. So we would also encourage you to take some risks. And if you feel like you need to run those risks by someone like a coach or a mentor first, feel free to do so. They can be small ones, but they will make a big difference in your confidence. Tip number 7, as a new leader, you really want to take a lot of time to focus on how to develop your leadership strengths. So when you are in kind of doer mode prior to your leadership role, you may be a little bit more like, okay, focused on the details and the ins and outs of the task or the project. And we want you to start thinking about, okay, what are some of the leadership strengths that I need to be developing in order to manage my team effectively? The list on the slide here can give you a start about some things to think about. And on our next slide, I'll show you our leadership wheel, which will have more. Do you need to work a little bit harder maybe on motivating others on your team? Either because, for example, you haven't been historically that good at that, but also because of COVID, we just need to do this more often because people are just lacking in motivation given what's going on. Do you need to take a stronger leadership role in meetings or with your team? Like take the reins a little bit more and take charge and be willing to make those tough decisions and have hard conversations. Do you need to handle conflict more effectively or develop your emotional intelligence like we talked about earlier with taking a class related to human resources and managing people and how to deal with people issues, so to speak? So tip number 7 in terms of developing your leadership skills is a huge one, because now instead of being like a taskmaster, you need to think about how can I be a better leader and have and hold the bigger picture and our strategic vision of our team as it relates to our organization. How do I hold that or keep that in mind at all times? If you take a look at this next slide, these are the top 10 leadership strengths or skills that this great organization, it's Development Dimensions International, they're a management consulting firm, highly regarded. They assert that these are the top 10 leadership strengths that we need in today's economy. And it would be a great idea when you're thinking about, okay, how do I figure out what leadership strengths I have versus which ones I need to work on or improve, to rate yourself in each of these areas on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic. And then also ask someone else to rank you, whether it's an employee, a coworker, or your current boss, or even better, all three, so that you get your own kind of self-reflective or self-assessment, but you're also asking others how you might be coming across as a new leader. And then from this, the 3 areas that you are the lowest should be your 3 areas or top areas of development that you really want to focus on improving in the next quarter, for example. So definitely, as part of what we're talking about, download the PowerPoint, for example, everyone, as part of developing your strategic career plan. And what we would recommend is take all of these 10 tips and say, okay, like these are the 3 areas that I need to focus on the most from the leadership wheel. So which of the tips are going to be most relevant to my 3 areas of development? And make a plan for the rest of this year. We do not expect you to be perfect and fantastic tomorrow or overnight. It takes time to develop these skills. So give yourself the rest of this year to really fine tune them. And if you feel like you need any help with anything that we've talked about today as a new manager or any of your other career goals, please don't hesitate to reach out to us either now or later on. You would just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com, and we would be happy to do a quick career strategy session with you so that we can give you some additional advice on the next steps that you should take. And it's also an opportunity to learn a little bit more about our coaching services and how we can help serve as one of your mentors for this new path for you. All right, let's talk about tip number 8. And in just a few moments here, we'll go ahead and move to Q&A. One of the things that we have found with our clients that's really, really important is we want them to do a good job as the new manager at not just listening to or accepting constructive, hopefully it's constructive, criticism and feedback, but also asking for it and setting the tone that you are open to feedback and input and making adjustments. So if you look at this slide here, obviously with feedback, we know that the incorrect response to receiving feedback from someone is to just dismiss it completely, blame the other person and say they're a jerk and criticize them and just kind of stay in that loop, versus accepting, or at least like filtering through what they've said, through what you believe to be true, and taking some of it to heart, like at least analyzing and taking a moment to say, okay, is there an element of truth in this, and what are the things that I could implement, action steps I could take to make changes to improve who I am as a leader and a new manager. So we really want you, as part of asking questions of your new team, to pull information out of them about where they are succeeding and thriving versus where they're struggling and need support, how they prefer to communicate, and everything else that's like that to help you create the right working relationship. You also want to let them know, in whatever way you feel comfortable doing so, that you're open to feedback and input. Let them know right away up front and walk your talk. Ask them for feedback and input and their opinion on a regular basis. Now, remember that just because you're asking for other people's opinion and feedback doesn't mean that you have to make those changes. And it doesn't mean that you're still not the boss. You can always let them know, that's great, thank you so much, I'll take that under advisement or into consideration. It doesn't mean you have to listen to them all the time, but at least getting their perspective can help you understand them much more so. Tip number 9 is to build your brand. And this piggybacks a little bit on what we talked about earlier with taking initiative. After you've started to kind of build your brand on social media, which was the previous slide, and on LinkedIn specifically, it's a great idea to get a little bit more involved in other parts of your organization, but also other areas or aspects of your industry as well, because this is an important piece to building your brand as a manager and as a leader. So we talked already about writing or commenting or sharing articles on LinkedIn. That's our first step. But we want you to add into your strategic career plan for the next year even. It might not be till later this year, for example, that you would like to consider serving on the board of an industry-specific association, so that you can again network, but get a bigger kind of big picture sense of where your industry is headed to get your feet wet with that. You could consider presenting at a conference, even if it's virtual, writing articles or volunteering your time for projects outside of your department or within your industry-specific association. Okay, so we want you all to be currently active, not just on LinkedIn, but also add into your plan, how can I be more active in my industry so that, again, I'm doing a better job about being proactive about making my mark. And then finally, one of the things we want you to do as a new manager too, is it's a great idea to kind of keep a journal, if you will, or an accomplishments document that helps you keep track of how well you're doing with your goals and your plan, the things you want to improve and change, and also the challenges that you're having. So as part of this, it's a great idea to boost your confidence, though. This would be for boosting confidence specifically, is to have as part of that journaling an accomplishments document, like on your desktop where it's easily accessible. And you can list your accomplishments so far in your new role. They could be kudos from employees or testimonials from clients, new skills and experiences that you have not just experienced, but that you have tackled successfully. And kind of create like a brag book for yourself, because number one, it's going to boost your confidence if you read this like every day, or at the bare minimum at the end of every week, to kind of look back on what you did well and how far you're moving along. And then also, when it's time to get that next promotion, you're ready to go and can demonstrate to them, hey, this is why I've been doing well in my role. But even when you have your next performance review, you can say, these are the 5 or 10 things I've accomplished as a new manager. So having kind of a brag book is not only helpful and good for your the confidence piece, but also for the tangible element of, how am I doing? What do I need to talk about in my performance review? All right, good. So I wanted to leave plenty of time for Q&A today. So before we get to that, one of the things I'd like you all to do right now is get out your pen and paper for a moment here and write down 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. Keep it short and sweet and simple. Remember, this is baby steps. We are not looking for you to become a fantastic, perfect leader, or manager in the next month. This is going to be a lifetime of adding skills and strengths to your repertoire here. But if you get the ball rolling early on and right away, you're going to get in the habit of this professional development faster and just kind of naturally incorporate it into your career plan every year. 2 ideas are here. One could be create the accomplishments document. Another one could be to ask your coworkers or employees for feedback using the leadership wheel on how you're doing. The complimentary strategy session could be another option. That email is here as well. And as we move to the Q&A, and Sarah Whitney, if you could just moderate that, if we've got anything, great. If not, and we've answered everything, that's okay too. I wanted to remind you all, especially those that are listening in later too, and feeling like confidence may be one of the biggest obstacles, that the greatest risk in life is not taking one. I love this quote. This always helps me kind of push past any of my fears or anxieties I might have about trying or doing something new. That without risk, remember, there's no reward. So we want you to be willing to build that confidence muscle in order to boost your confidence over time. And I promise you, in the next several months, as you start working on these action items, you'll look back and say, oh, I'm totally so much more confident, and you won't know where the time went. It happens kind of overnight. So let's go ahead and do our Q&A. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat, or I think we've got a Q&A box too.
Yes. Okay. So our first question is, we're just going to jump right in. If I know I'm about to be promoted to manager, should I go ahead and tell my colleagues or wait for the announcement to start changing those relationships?
That is such a great question. I love that one. So what I would say, I would wait until it's more officially announced, unless some of your or 1 or 2 of your colleagues are really close with them. You can't wait to share the news. You know that they'll keep it, a secret and keep it confidential. I think it's best to wait until it's actually formally announced, just in case. You never know what might happen. And you also don't know how people are going to take it. And it's kind of a good idea to kind of let people know after that's already happened, unless, again, you're really close to someone and you do want to, that absolutely it's going to happen, and you want to grease the wheels a little bit, and you think they will take it better if it comes from you. So it's a little bit situational based on those kind of scenarios. Great question.
Okay, another question is, earlier you talked about the 2 mentors, one within your own network, one maybe outside of it to get both peripheries. What if you don't have a great selection of mentors in your current office, but you are looking or current role, but you are looking for some feedback on that? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah. I would ask a trusted coworker or colleague. I would also consider asking your boss or previous boss. So ask someone that you feel, that you trust, that you feel will keep things confidential, that they'll give you the feedback that you need and be honest about it, but also kind of kind about it. And I think that what people will normally say to us is like, well, I don't really know anyone. And then the next session we typically have with them, they've at least thought of one person. So if you sit down and think about it a little bit based on some of those kind of criteria and possible people, usually people can find at least one person they could get that feedback from. Great question.
Great. Well, I have not seen anything else come in the Q&A or chat box. So I say we go ahead and wrap up and enjoy, even if it's cold out where we are, enjoy some sunshine. How do you feel?
That sounds great to me. It's like I was saying, it's like spring break. I'm ready for it too. I mean, people just need to get outside and, we're getting the vaccines. It's like we're chomping at the bit to get back to normal. So absolutely.
We're all so ready.
Yeah.
Well, Hallie, thank you so much for sharing this great information. Again, as always, I took a nice handful of notes, so I'm thankful for you. Thank you for our attendees for being here today. Please check out our other career resources on Vanderbilt Alumni Association on VU Connect. I will drop a feedback link in the email and link to this recording later this week. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
Kelly.
day. All right. Bye.